The Indianapolis Colts placed the franchise tag on Michael Pittman Jr. today, keeping the star wide receiver in a Colts uniform for at least the 2024 season. So, what's next for Pittman and the Colts in their ongoing negotiations? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and I'm joined here, as always, by my fellow co-host and analyst at Horseshoe Huddle, Drake Wally. Drake, we're going live on a Tuesday. We told the people, it's time to where those breaking news episodes might come in. And of course, with the franchise tag deadline, we knew it was either going to be the franchise tag being placed on Michael Pittman, or we were going to talk about a new long-term extension for the Colts' number one wide receiver. Turns out it is the former. So Pittman is going to be with the Colts for at least the 2024 season. Colts fans, you can relax now.
Yeah, and we'll get into more detail on what that means. It doesn't just mean that, hey, he's going to be here or he's going to be with the Colts for another year. There's a lot more that's probably going to be happening in the midst of all this. It's just to lock him down for now. Because if it goes past that, as you saw with Saquon Barkley, he's a free agent. Like if they choose to not franchise tag somebody today after 4 p.m., then it's, that person goes to free agency. So just happy to hear this. A dynamic player. He's earned it. 100% has earned it. And I think I've seen a couple people jokingly say that now he can just buy an absolute crap ton of stuff for his farm now with all that money. So good for Michael Pittman. He's earned every cent.
Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, like I said, we knew he was going to be one way or the other. It was either going to be a franchise tag today or it was going to be a long-term extension. There really wasn't any guessing of if Michael Pittman Jr. was going to reach free agency. The Colts had no intention of letting that happen. And so tonight we're going to talk about what it all means with the franchise tag. How close were the Colts actually to getting negotiations and getting a deal done before the 4 p.m. deadline today? And then really what's next between these two parties? Of course, the chat already showing out. We've got Andrew Harmon here. Let's go Colts. Let's surprise some people and be Super Bowl contenders. Right. Hey, Andrew's ready for the 2024 season. Appreciate you being here. NFL nerds, so far I'm enjoying how quiet things are from both camps, unlike the JT situation that got loud. Yes, definitely a lot different situation between the Colts and Pittman's agency. David Mulligetta is his agent. A lot different than when it was with Malkikawa last summer, but good to see you, NFL nerds. Sarah, hey, Andrew and Drake, glad we tagged Pittman. Hopefully extension soon, and my goodness, lots of good safeties in free agency. Yeah, we're going to talk about free agency on Thursday night. Tonight, we're just going to focus really on Michael Pittman and that tag. But Thursday night, we're definitely going to do our free agent primer to get you guys all set for when the legal tampering period begins on Monday. Patrick, the CFO's in the house 2 nights in a row. Let's do this. It's rare, but with free agency, the draft, more breaking news episodes are bound to happen. This is the first one of a very busy season for the Indianapolis Colts. And then, of course, Stats Bat. What's up, gents? Ready for another hour-long episode? Hey, guys, I'll be up front. I don't think it's going to be an hour tonight. Drake and I are probably shooting for 20, 25 minutes. Just a short episode tonight to talk about the franchise tag with Michael Pittman Jr. and really get you guys a comprehensive look of how things stand between the Colts and their top wide receiver. But, guys, before we do that, please go follow us on all of our socials. Like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night so you never miss an episode. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you're listening to podcasts, we're on there as well. Make sure you subscribe. Give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And guys, also don't forget to pre-order the Indy Draft Guide. Over 225 write-ups on all the prospects in the 2024 NFL draft class, special features, how these prospects fit with the Indianapolis Colts, all going to be in there. Use the link in the description and the code DRAFTMISS to give $1 off, and you'll get this draft guide for just $9. So make sure you pre-order that so you're all up to date as we continue to go through a very exciting draft season for the Indianapolis Colts. So Drake, let's get right into it here. The Colts placed the franchise tag on Michael Pittman Jr. today. And like I said, we expected this to happen if they did not reach a long-term extension. The first time the Colts have used the franchise tag since the 2013 season, when our good buddy Pat McAfee was tagged by old Ryan Grigson. Turns out, Drake, I found this kind of interesting. I'm already going off of on a tangent or going off topic here, but
Do it.
Pat McAfee admitted and kind of relayed some information on his show today that he actually spoke and had a good conversation with Ryan Grigson. So those two guys have been kind of going at it for years. We know that they've always butted heads, but hey, maybe they're starting to put things to bed there. So that was just a little interesting nugget that I heard on the Pat McAfee show today. But I digress. So first time the Colts have used the franchise tag since 2013, and it gives Pittman a 1-year, $21.8 million contract, fully guaranteed. And Drake, I kind of mentioned this in my piece when I talked today about Pittman getting the tag. Up until this point, Michael Pittman Jr. in his career has made just under $6 million. So this is practically tripling, or more than tripling, excuse me, what Pittman has made in his career in just this one season.
Yeah, and it's going to take a sizable chunk out of the cap. Okay, now that's okay though, because you're in a passing league now, and you can't deny Anthony Richardson your top target. Okay, so it's something that, like Ballard said, it was a tool that they had at their disposal. They didn't necessarily want to use it, but if necessary, they would, and this was a necessary thing. Deadlines, like you always say, it spurs action, and in typical Colts fashion, they waited till the last damn second. I think there was like 58 minutes before that deadline, and they got it done. And you know what? It might not be long term, but at least it locks him down for this season. And like you said, they're going to be talking more and more and more. But the most important thing is that in year 2 for Anthony Richardson, you're giving him Michael Pittman Jr., who is coming off of yet again another career season. And it just seems like every single year that he's played, he just keeps on setting his own records and getting even better.
Right. And then to kind of dive in a little bit further on the details of this tag, the Colts did place the non-exclusive franchise tag on Pittman. So what that means, and I want to try to make this clear for everybody, is that the non-exclusive franchise tag means that Pittman and his representation can still go out and negotiate with other teams on a contract. However, there's a huge caveat to that. So if the other teams can offer Michael Pittman Jr. a contract, however, the Colts have the first right to match that contract. So say, I don't know, who's a wide receiver needy team? Say the New England Patriots wanted to go out and spend their $100 million in cap space, and they offer Pittman a 4-year, $100 million deal. Well, before they can sign Michael Pittman, the Colts have the right to match that deal. And if the Colts do match that deal, then that's what Pittman would be on. That's the contract Pittman would have with the Indianapolis Colts. However, if the Colts do not choose to match that deal that the New England Patriots are offering Pittman, then the Patriots not only have to pay Michael Pittman that 4-year, $100 million contract, they also have to send 2 first-round picks to the Indianapolis Colts. So that would mean pick number 3, where they pick this year, and where there's your Marvin Harrison Jr. for the Indianapolis Colts, and then the Patriots' first-round pick next year. So because of all that, and because of how high the price would be in order to get Michael Pittman, I put the odds at other teams offering a contract or negotiating with Pittman at about 0. Because if you think about it, last year, Drake, this was the same kind of franchise tag that Lamar Jackson, the eventual MVP of the NFL in 2023, this is the tag that the Ravens placed on him. And you saw there were no other teams that came out and said they were interested in Lamar Jackson. So I would assume it would be the same for Michael Pittman. And guys, this is normal around the league. Most of the time when the non-exclusive tag is placed on a player, other teams stay away. They don't really want to negotiate with them because there's really no point, since if they do negotiate that offer, the team's pretty much just going to match that offer anyway.
Well, that and also if they don't, you do still have to pay the guy, and then you're forfeiting 2 first-round picks. You are setting yourself back substantially. I'm not saying that Michael Pittman Jr. is not a hell of a prize, but good lord, man, you are setting yourself back substantially because your 2 first-round picks are out the window.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I know that Colts fans and Andrew explained this to me too. Hey, they're doing everything possible to avoid the franchise tag. They don't want to do that. That's why it took so long. That's why they used every minute they could of that 4 p.m. deadline. But I know that there's still the crazy, unicorn chance, right? But it's just not. It's not going to happen, man. I mean, there's
No.
not a team out there that's going to say, you know what, let's pay him top dollar and give away 2 first-round picks. It's just very, very, very like 10 zeros 1% chance to happen. So it locks him down. I know it's not a long-term contract, but it still gives Indianapolis a chance to get that out of the way, get him in uniform for the 2024 season, and then work on something long-term while all that's happening. And of course, it's kind of like a 1-year contract fully guaranteed, but then you get an opportunity to negotiate during that as well.
Exactly. And I'm going to highlight some of the comments that Stats Matt is putting in here, because the Stats Matt is on it tonight. So Stats Matt said, learn today also that it doesn't have to be 2 first-round picks, but the Colts can request up to that compensation, and you would assume that that's what they would do. They would request the maximum compensation in order to either deter people from going after Michael Pittman, or wanting to make sure that they do receive the maximum compensation for that. And Joey Galloway, 24 years ago, was the last guy to change teams on a non-exclusive tag. So that just shows the rarity that it really happens in the NFL, Drake. But I know you were texting me earlier today, before the Colts had tagged Michael Pittman Jr. So I wanna kind of punt this on over to you. What was your reaction when you saw that, when you saw that Michael Pittman was getting tagged by the Indianapolis Colts?
At first, you're just glad. You know what I mean? You're excited for Anthony Richardson. You're sure as hell excited for Shane Steichen, and you're excited for the rest of the team because this is a guy that simply unlocks a lot more. That also makes you excited, for whoever they draft, whoever they sign. Just the young guys, because Pittman is a he's a captain. He's a bona fide leader. He's not the quiet guy he was in the Phillip Rivers year. He is straight up wide receiver 1, and no one in the league, no fan anywhere can make the argument that he's a secondary wide receiver anymore, period. It also makes you really excited for what his ceiling's going to be now that he's in the league for 4 seasons and he's got consistency at quarterback. But I think that once it's settled in, it kind of sucked just a smidge that a contract couldn't just get agreed upon, and that's just going to be said regardless. That's just a default feeling everyone's going to have. But at the end of the day, man, it's just good that he's locked in. It's good that they can now get that out of the way, get the important stuff finished, and now you can look forward to the next season while also looking to cement him long term. He's got a good agent. Even Chris Ballard mentioned he's got a great agent, and he himself is just a great locker room guy, great on the field, great for the offense, great for the team, great for the franchise, and he's one of the best wide receivers they've had in recent memory. So it's all just good. My reaction was, hell yes, the Indianapolis Colts get to retain a guy who's just done nothing but produce with complete and utter inconsistency around him.
And in my opinion, placing the franchise tag on Michael Pittman Jr. was more of a formality than anything else, to be honest. Yeah. It doesn't signify that the Colts aren't going to get a long-term extension done. And honestly, at this point, it's like we kind of expected that the franchise tag was going to be placed on Michael Pittman. I mean, Chris Ballard himself flat out said, do you expect Pittman to be on the team next September? And he said yes. So it was either going to be a long-term deal, which still can happen, and I would assume would happen before the deadline in July, because players that have been tagged have up until the middle of July in order to come to an agreement with their team on a long-term deal. So that's another deadline that we'll be talking about, especially if negotiations get closer to that point. But it was more of a formality, in my opinion, because the Colts don't want to let him go. I mean, Pittman wants to be in Indy, but he also wants to be compensated fairly. And his agent, David Mulligata, is one of the best agents in the NFL. David Mulligetta was the guy that helped negotiate the $250 million fully guaranteed contract for Deshaun Watson with the Cleveland Browns. So, but the Colts have and Chris Ballard have a very good relationship with Mulligan. I think that's partially why the talks have been so quiet, because he's done this for a long time. They have a really good relationship. They trust one another. So yeah, for me, it was more of a formality, and I fully expect this to get done eventually, and Pittman to sign a long-term extension. First super chat of the night goes to who else? The CFO, Patrick Y.
The accounting department of the Horseshoe Huddle.
Thank you so much for the $5 super chat, brother. And Patrick asks, Pittman's average annual value could be around $25 million per year, but what do you guys think the breakdown will actually be? Or do we think they'll keep it to an average annual value for the cap? So I don't necessarily think it's going to be 20. If say 4 years, $100 million. When I was doing my research, I came in a little bit lower as 23.3 on average annual value. But with Mike Evans kind of setting a new bar with the 2 years to around 26 million annually, I think that price tag has definitely gone up a little bit. I'll be the first to admit that. So I do think probably 24.5, 25 million is going to be the price tag for Michael Pittman. And I would expect probably in this earlier year to maybe have the cap hit not be as much. And as the cap grows, then you can see the cap hit getting a little bit bigger. So I do think that probably in the earlier years of the contract, it's going to be a little bit less. They'll probably try to backload the contract a little bit as the cap grows. The cap hit will get a little bit more. So for this contract, and it just continues to keep that flexibility for you to go out to sign guys like Grover Stewart, Kenny Moore. Just keeps that flexibility in mind. So I don't necessarily think it's going to be 25 each year straight up, but I do think 25 is a really good number to pinpoint as what it's going to end up costing on an average annual value basis for Michael Pittman. Drake, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I love how you mentioned backloading the contract. Now, of course, with the franchise tag, I think they're at like 73 million right now. That's going to just because it's fully guaranteed for the first year here, it's going to drop down to about $50 million available. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, so right out of the gate, you are looking at a sizable, about a third of the cap is going to go to Michael Pittman, but long term, I'm right there with Andrew. I think number one, Pittman's a guy that is okay with backloading his contract, and number two, the Colts aren't in win now mode, but they're also not in rebuild mode. They're in an interesting position because their team is so young. Pittman himself is still young, but he's one of the leaders on the team. So you want to have money available 25, 26, so that you can get more talent in there offensively, defensively. Like Andrew said, re-sign your guys. I mean, hell, we've been seeing the running back market is crazy right now. So don't be surprised if somehow the Colts can get Zach Moss back too, if they so choose, because that market is dried up for Zach Moss right now. Those starters, Saquon, Josh Jacobs, Derrick Henry, those guys are potentially going to take the positions he might have been able to get, had they gotten contracts or franchise tagged. So I think that, like Andrew said, it's going to be backloaded. And I also think that it's going to relate in that regard to how he produces, because for all we know, he's just going to keep on getting better. And that backloading of the contract is just going to make more sense as he gets paid more throughout the year. But I love that 4 year, about $23.5 million contract annually. But like you said, Mike Evans now, $26 million a year. Who's to say that Michael Pittman Jr. is not going to get a little bit more now because of that?
Well, and I think I don't think the Colts are going to backload it in such a manner where you end up seeing Pittman get like a $30 million cap hit towards the end of this deal, because he's be entering like close to 29, 30 years old. And the Colts don't typically structure their contracts like that anyway. They like to be able to have an out towards the end. So if anything, you might see those middle numbers, have the majority in years 2 and 3, have the majority of the cap hits, and almost like a pyramid, and have the first and last years be the years that don't have as big of those cap hits. So it'll be interesting to see how they structure the contract. But typically the Colts don't like to backload contracts and have the most expensive years at the end. It's either at the front or towards the middle of those contracts, especially for their star players. But fantastic question, Patrick. Really, really appreciate it, buddy, and appreciate the super chat as always. You are an absolute rock star, my guy. All right, Drake. Now let's talk about kind of how close were the Colts to getting these negotiations done with Michael Pittman. So this is kind of what I was hearing today, as far as how close it was, because the Colts did work all day to try to get a contract extension. I know some of the national media guys said he didn't really sense that they were very close on a deal. I don't know if I would say it was down to the wire, like they were only a couple $1 million off, but I do know that it was closer than a lot of people think. Talking with people and just hearing from people in the know within the Colts organization, they did start to have confidence that a deal would be done with Michael Pittman Jr. But they just couldn't get the numbers exactly right for both sides. So again, that's why the tag was placed. They're going to continue those negotiations, give themselves quite a bit more time to work on a long-term deal, but they just couldn't find that middle ground. They did come close though. So in terms of what's to come on an extension, I think that's a really good sign for the Colts and Michael Pittman Jr.'s side, is that both teams and both sides were very, very close on a deal, just couldn't quite get it done before that 4 p.m. deadline.
Yeah, and if you want to hear about the relationship, because there's receivers, I'm telling you, that are divas. All right, that just they're all about the money. Which, look, it's a job. I know it's a high paying job, the highest of possibilities. But you go back to Chris Ballard's press conference, his most recent one. He said, we have a real interesting relationship. He's the kind of guy that'll stop into my office and I'll just be like, what do you want? In a very joking way.
Right.
They have a great relationship. They have an honest relationship. And I'm just paraphrasing what Ballard said. And also go watch that press conference, because like Andrew always says, Ballard lays those nuggets down. He really did kind of provide the info before it even happened, that they were pretty close to a deal. It's not surprising to hear that. And like you said, it's very encouraging, because now that, the stress of will I be a Colt or will I be a free agent, now that that's out of the way, now you can focus even more on the long term. And so I don't think it's going to be that much longer. And I think that it's 100% going to happen. You're not going to have any sort of drama or ridiculousness. And I can't remember who said it. I think it was NFL Nerd. It's been very nice, to see the Colts kind of be more of a quiet team for once. Not a lot of crap and drama happening. You've got your quarterback, you got your coach. Now you've got your running back and you've got your wide receiver of the future. So he's got a hell of a relationship, man. He's not the kind of guy that's going to go out there and be all about himself. Kind of going back to what Patrick was saying, how is it going to be structured, his contract? We fully expect, while it will be kind of like this, because when you're at the latter half of 20, you don't want to be paying a guy, out the ass, for taking all your cap and throwing 30 million at a guy. But at the same time, I do expect Michael Pittman, maybe those first couple of years, he won't get the most of that money, because you want to get talent in there to help him out. You don't want a 2023 situation again where he's the only guy out there dominating everything, because think about this, if he has a couple extra pass catchers out there, it might make him even better and make his numbers even more gaudy.
I would agree. And so negotiations will continue between Michael Pittman Jr. And the Indianapolis Colts. Now, as far as when those negotiations will end and they'll be able to come to a long-term deal, I'm not going to put a timeline on that, because it could go a variety of different ways, because I did hear that they were close. They could try to wrap this thing up fairly soon. And so that way they know what they're looking at before they enter free agency. That's very much still on the table, that we could get an extension here within the next few days. There could also be the situation where the Colts and Pittman's representation say, look, we want to take some time. If you guys want to go out and try to negotiate with some other teams, you certainly can, and then potentially come back to us. Maybe they revisit things after free agency. Maybe Pittman and his team kind of want to see if other wide receivers get their extensions done to try to increase the market a little bit. That's very possible. So it could be here soon if they just want to get it done and out of the way with. But Pittman and his team can take some time. Again, there's really no rush on this because the Colts and Michael Pittman's representation can negotiate and try to work on a long-term extension up until about the middle of July. There hasn't been a specific date set by the NFL yet as far as what that deadline, but it's usually the middle of July, right before training camp starts, that teams can work with the players that they place the franchise tag on a long-term deal. So it very well could, Pittman and his team may want to wait and see if guys like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lambs, if some of those guys get their contract extensions and boost that market up, they might be wanting to wait and see if they can kind of cash in on that, because as the market climbs, Pittman's price is also going to climb. So that's kind of the risk that you're taking with the Colts, is by that the Colts are taking by you're locking him in for now, but you're not locking him in long term. And if those guys get those huge deals like we're assuming they're going to be, Pittman's price is going to go up as well throughout the summer, Drake.
Yeah, and think about those names you just mentioned. You know, you got Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's had nothing but consistency and fantastic play calling on a good team. And then you've got Justin Jefferson, who's had Kirk Cousins. And then you've got CeeDee Lamb, who's had Dak Prescott. Michael Pittman has put up equally good numbers. I don't know, maybe not like the highest of the high end and all the touchdowns, but he's done all of that with just rotation at quarterback. So you could probably factor that in and make him a little bit more expensive too. So while it is a risk, you know, it does stink at the end of the day. They couldn't have found a contract extension or extended him in 2023. But luckily the Colts and Chris Ballard have just been able to not overspend. You know, you're not in a New Orleans Saints, LA Chargers type of situation where you're sitting there trying to just get rid of people so you can save money. All right. The Colts aren't like throwing guys off the roster, and look at the Seahawks. They just got rid of Jamal freaking Adams. Okay. So like, the Colts are in a good position. I know that he's going to be expensive, but Michael Pittman's absolutely worth every cent, people. Okay. Me and Andrew will talk about it till we're blue in the face, just like the Colts jerseys. Go back to that Christmas Eve game against the Falcons, and you'll see just how valuable Michael Pittman Jr. was to that offense.
Yeah, he really is.
Yeah.
And that's why I still have full confidence that a deal will get done between Pittman and the Colts. You know, there's still so much time left for them to get a deal done. It's fine that if Pittman wants to see what happens with the market, and I think the Colts are fine with letting him go in and seeing what that market ends up being. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But Drake, I really do have a full confidence that we're going to see a long-term contract extension between Michael Pittman Jr. and the Indianapolis Colts that keeps Pittman in Indianapolis throughout his prime.
Yeah. And look, at the end of the day, you cannot have enough offensive weapons, and the Colts just don't have that many right now. Okay. So it's good. Everyone can breathe a nice sigh of relief that the Colts have retained their best pass catcher. And hey, I do have to give a shout out to David Burrows, drinking out of the same Colts cup as me. You're a legend, pal. Good guy.
two peas in a pod right there. We have another super chat here from Nico. Nico giving us some of the Danish currency, the DKK over there. Love to see it, but I'm not sure what that translates into American dollars. But Nico, really appreciate all of your support, buddy, for the super chat, man. And Nico asks, Ogletree could be back. Technically, he was always under contract, and he looked very good with Anthony Richardson in their limited time on the field together. Should that put a damper on the Colts drafting Brock Bowers? And so we weren't going to talk about this tonight. Going to talk about it on Thursday. But Drew Ogletree, who was under investigation for domestic violence charges and had been arrested a couple, was that December, I think it was.
Yeah.
It came out today that those domestic violence charges were dropped from the investigation. He is still on the commissioner exempt list. The NFL will be doing an investigation on him, so he hasn't been put on the Colts practice or on the Colts roster as of yet. We'll have to wait for that investigation to hold. But should that put a damper on the Colts drafting Bowers? Absolutely not, Nico. Yes, I understand Ogletree showed some flashes, but he's not Brock Bowers. He is not a coming in a top 10 talent at the tight end position like Brock Bowers, and even though he was the Chargers were dismissed, and the NFL could still punish him or the Colts could still release him. Nothing has been determined on Ogletree's front as far as his status with the Indianapolis Colts yet. And remember, I mean, Ogletree is if you have a healthy Jelani Woods is probably your tight end one if Brock Bowers isn't here. So you're not talking about your starter at the tight end position. Do I think Ogletree would have a role on this team? Absolutely. But it doesn't take away from my opinion, and it shouldn't take away from the Colts' opinion on drafting Brock Bowers, who's a top 5 prospect in this draft class.
Yeah, and you're looking at Ogletree, who while we won't get into the whether we think he'll return or not, or blah blah blah, because the Colts, their hands are off of that now. It's officially up to the NFL on what they do with Drew Ogletree, but he's a blocker mostly. I mean, don't get me wrong, he can definitely get downfield. He's an athletic freak, but even if he's on the roster, you're looking at pretty much Jelani Woods, and then I would honestly say you might even be looking at Kylan Granson, then Will Mallory, then Drew Ogletree, and then Mo Alley Cox. The jury's still out on what they want to do with Mo Alley Cox. I feel like we've been saying that since like 2021. But look, Nico, first off, thank you so much for the super chat, man. Appreciate you. Brock Bowers, if he's drafted, is the tight end one. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And Jelani Woods would be the tight end two. Now, that is enticing. If you have both those guys on the field at the same time, you got a lot of tight end, 2 tight end sets. It kind of goes back to when Kobe Fleener and Dwayne Allen were on the field together. You had a lot of really cool things happen, even though Dwayne Allen couldn't stay healthy. But no, Brock Bowers should not be sullied just because Drew Ogletree stays on the team. If the Colts have the available selection to get him at 15, dear Lord, they won't pass that up. They're just not going to. They'd be foolish to let him fall to 16, because I guarantee you the team behind them would pick him up.
Right. And as Patrick says in the chat, Ogletree could supplant Mo Alley Cox. That saves the Colts about $6 million against the cap.
That's true.
There. So Nico, really appreciate the super chat, buddy, and the question, and appreciate all of your support as always. So Drake, let's wrap this up here. I gave my take on my confidence that the Colts and Pittman get a deal done this summer. What do you think? Do you think the Colts and Pittman get a long-term extension done before that July deadline? And do you think Pittman is going to be with the Colts for the foreseeable future?
Absolutely. 100%. It's there's no doubt in my mind the fact that they did the franchise tag, that kind of keeps him in place. I think that the reason that a deal didn't get done is just because he's so damn valuable, and his agent's fantastic. Let's be honest. I mean, he got Deshaun freaking Watson, that ridiculous contract, and he's not worth the money. So Pittman is worth this money. All right, he's worth this franchise tag, and I think that the relationship that he's got with Steichen, the relationship he has with the Colts in general, this is a guy who hasn't really shown a whole lot of frustration when this has been a frustrating team to play for, honestly, at times. And so it's going to get done. It's going to be around what Andrew said, I think between like $23.5, $25 million. But it also depends on what those guys we talked about earlier, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, what do they get paid? Whatever Pittman gets paid, though, he's worth it because he's done so much for this team with so little, and I cannot wait to see what happens when he actually has other weapons for Anthony Richardson and company to throw the ball to.
Yeah, I think the best is still to come for Michael Pittman Jr. and his game. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in and talking about Michael Pittman Jr. With us as NFL Nerd grows in that one last super chat out here. Of course,
we got Danish currency, we got Canadian currency.
Exactly. We take all currency, but NFL Nerd really appreciate it. And he asked guesses on Pittman's stats for 2024. Man, that's a loaded question because you don't know if Anthony Richardson's going to be, how healthy he's going to be. I mean, just a quick one, I would probably say again, probably you're looking at 110 to 115 catches for probably 12 to 1300 yards, and I would go up to about six or seven touchdowns. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go 115 catches. I'm going to go 1200 and I'm going to say 1,250 yards and seven touchdowns for Michael Pittman Jr. What do you think, Drake?
I think that if he gets additional weapons, which they're going to address that. He averaged almost 10 targets a game last season. I don't think he's going to get targeted that much again, but he's gonna supplant that 109 catches. So I would say, they get a wide receiver. Well, hell, they're getting Brock Bowers, right, Andrew?
Exactly.
They're getting Brock Bowers.
Exactly.
So I'd say so early to tell. Let's say 115 catches. Let's say 1,325 yards, because he's going to be able to catch more deep passes. He'll have a deep thrower. And then he's going to do better at the touchdowns. He's going to get more red zone targets because he's a big dude. I'm going to be positive here. We're going to say 10 tuds.
Ooh, okay. His previous career high is 6, so that would be quite the jump. But hey, I love the optimism, Drake. And NFL Nerd, really appreciate the super chat, buddy, and all of your support as always. And the rest of you guys can support us too by go following all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or like tonight for those special breaking news episodes, so you never miss us. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. Make sure you subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And guys, don't forget, go pre-order the Indy Draft Guide. Over 225 write-ups on all your favorite prospects in the 2024 NFL Draft class, special features and interviews, specific fits for the Indianapolis Colts, and much more. Use the link in the description with the code DRAFTMISS to get $1 off of your pre-order. Make sure you go do that. It helps support us here at Horseshoe Huddle that work on the Indy Draft Guide, and it'll get you informed for one of the most exciting drafts for the Indianapolis Colts. So, guys, we're going to be back on Thursday night to get you all set for free agency. That's going to be our free agent primer. Make sure you go check out all of our writings on horseshoehuddle.com. Drake's got a piece out on horseshoehuddle.com about the 3 reasons why the Colts should draft Brian Thomas Jr. And of course, I've got my mock draft out, my first post-combine mock draft, as well as a piece going in depth on Michael Pittman receiving the franchise tag from the Indianapolis Colts. So make sure you check that out, as well as all the other fantastic writings at horseshoehuddle.com. Go follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And like I said, we'll be back Thursday night to get you all set for free agency. Is Chris Ballard going to spend some money and get some high-priced free agents, or are we going to see a lot of Samson Ebukam level free agent signings? We'll tell you all that and much more on Thursday night. So we'll see you then, Colts fans. Enjoy the next couple of days. Free agency right around the corner.